Welcome to Question It, the podcast where we challenge the status quo and rethink what we know about wellness and living our best lives. I'm Kevin, your host, guide, and sometimes guinea pig on this journey of exploration, understanding, and growth. In each episode, we'll dive into provocative topics, question long-held beliefs, and explore alternative approaches for meaningful change. If you're ready to step outside your comfort zone and embrace new ideas, you're in the right place. Let's embark on this journey together, questioning, exploring, and experimenting to make life a little easier and happier. Let's question it. What sets Question It apart is our interactive approach. Instead of a one-way exchange with me talking and you listening, we're creating a space for real discussion. In each episode's show notes, I'll provide a link to join me and up to 9 other listeners in a private, guided conversation using the Uchi app. We'll answer up to 10 episode-related questions and engage in meaningful dialogue. Best of all, it's completely free. No sales pitches, no networking, no sharing of contact information, except mine. Just real asynchronous conversation. The reality is, nothing happens in life if we don't take action. In this episode of Question It, I'm asking the question, are my healthy habits disguising my pain and preventing my growth? This episode is actually part of an article that I wrote back in June of 2020 during the pandemic. The original article, which I'll link in the show notes, was titled "The Tiniest Distractions: What Could Hinder Personal Growth?" And it's really interesting what I found. It's actually kind of an epiphany or realization that I had back in 2020. And I think it is just as relevant or even more so today than it was 4 years ago. And I'd love to hear what you guys think about these ideas and how distractions play a role in our lives. So here it goes. On a recent easy 30-minute jog, I had a thought. First, a thought alone is pretty amazing because typically my mind is a blank void whenever I exercise. This is my way of meditating and taking a brain break. When exercising, the best I can do to think is focused on the task at hand and maintaining basic bodily functions such as breath, movement, hydration, and managing any physical pain or discomfort. If it's a bike ride, I may have a cue sheet for directions. In that way, I don't need to think, I need only follow. Second, the thought I did have, which has stuck with me, was, what if even the tiniest of distractions are preventing us from dealing with our true hurdles in life? In the past 2+ months, I've been doing a lot of self-work. Perhaps it's related to the COVID-19 pandemic, but for now, I'll just say I finally reached my limit watching the morning news programs and the evening news updates, so I just stopped. Yep, I stopped watching the news cold turkey. Can you believe it? And I haven't suffered in the least. In fact, life has only gotten better. Instead of 2 to 3 hours of distraction a day, even just as background noise, I've replaced the news with reading. Wow, what a concept. I must be some kind of genius. Not. To be honest, I don't read a lot of books. I wish I did, but that hasn't been my mode of relaxation, especially since I read all day, every day, in the form of journal articles, blogs, social media, emails, research papers, and the list goes on. However, the reading I'm doing now, which is currently nonfiction and human behavior related, is serving as a catalyst to explore different aspects of myself. I won't bore you with all the details, but I have slowed down since the pandemic, and I already had a pretty uncomplicated life. I am truly grateful. But wait, there's more. In addition to most aspects of my life slowing down, I also wasn't exercising. Those who know me might find this shocking given my 20 years of triathlon training, But since hurting my leg in a February 2020 marathon, because I made the error of running through the pain, I've only just begun to run again. Truth be told, it only took 3 months for me to 100% heal my leg. I also couldn't swim at that time because pools were closed, and I wasn't biking because the weather still hadn't turned for my liking. Have I had an issue not exercising like I'm used to? No way. It's been awesome. Now, I didn't even have to feel guilty about not exercising, and frankly, I have been loving this break. Since kicking the news habit, no longer exercising, and reaching my limit at a 6 to 9 hour workday, I'm digging more into personal growth in other ways. So what does that look like? In the past few months, I feel like I've made great strides in self-awareness and self-improvement. I've been tapping into feelings, or trying to, and it's been eye-opening. It's also been damn uncomfortable. It's hard. It hurts. I'll admit, I've been doing my share of crying, and I'm sure there's more to come. Now's your chance to cue the song It's Alright to Cry from the Free to Be You and Me soundtrack from 1970 or 71. Light is shining on aspects of myself that I've been aware of for a while, but never quite in this way. I don't like what I see. I'm actually pretty ashamed of it because I'm seeing how I've treated myself and others, subconsciously of course, and it's not what I want. This is not who I want to be. I want to change. I need to change. I am changing, and I can feel it starting to happen. It feels good. Whatever changing and transforming I'm experiencing, that is, to be more openly loving and compassionate rather than hide it, in case you were wondering, is not the purpose of this article or this podcast episode. The purpose is I've noticed that even the tiniest bit of energy expenditure elsewhere in my life causes my efforts toward emotional growth to all but stop. Not only does the work stop, but I also stop looking. Much less am I aware of the need in the first place. Meanwhile, the negative effects continue in my life. Even though I am motivated and committed to continuing to change for the better, in a matter of days of starting to run again, those efforts stopped, and I simply didn't have the energy to continue to work on my self-improvement. I didn't even have the energy to think about it in any substantive way. I almost even forgot about the areas of me I want to address. In short, my life has slowed down so much, you might say boring, but in a good way, with far fewer distractions, some may call them activities, hobbies, responsibilities, busyness, passions, and so on, that I've been able to see and, more importantly, feel a lot of emotions that have been buried, suppressed, and repressed for most of my life. And I'm not talking about some catastrophic life event I've suppressed, such as child abuse or growing up with an alcoholic father, neither of which applies to me, thankfully. I'm referring to everyday life, however it happens to be perceived, from infancy until the present day. It's incredible to me that something as little as a 30-minute jog could require enough energy so as to prevent me from doing this emotional work. Granted, a 30-minute jog may not seem like much, but that's just where my fitness level is currently. In years past, it was more like a 2-hour run or a 6-hour bike ride, or both back to back. It seems I've needed progressively more activity to exhaust my energy to the point where experiencing my own deep emotions wasn't even a blip on my radar. That's a heck of a lot of time and effort distracting myself while doing something good for me. Regardless of the activity, what I'm noticing is that in order for me to be in a state where I'm able to really tap into and feel the deep feelings I haven't felt for decades, I've needed this time to slow way, way, way down. Even then, it's still hard to allow myself to feel and give myself permission to experience those feelings for as long as needed, and I know there's more work to do. But what does this mean? What does it mean when something is socially acceptable, even revered as fitness and physical health, is preventing me from doing the emotional work I know I need to do? I'm doing good, right? I'm exercising regularly, eating well. I'm doing what I should be doing to be healthy, right? And exercise is just one way I'm distracting myself. How much exercise is really needed to be healthy? I've thought for years that a daily 1 hour brisk walk was plenty good. Heck, if I recall correctly from 20 plus years ago, that's what Dr. Andrew Wild recommends. If you've read The Blue Zones by Dan Buettner, then you know most centenarians simply lead an active daily lifestyle and don't even exercise formally in any way. I wonder if less time was spent on physical exercise and more time honoring and experiencing our emotions, we'd be even healthier overall. The latest research shows most chronic illnesses have less to do with genetics or poor attention to one's physical health as it does with not attending to one's emotional needs, or I'll say emotional health needs. Maybe this is why your grandmother was able to eat bacon and eggs, cooked in lard, smoke cigarettes, sip a little whiskey here and there, never exercise but rather sit for hours on her porch, and still live to her late 90s. Perhaps the time she spent not doing was beneficial and she was in a more balanced emotional state with an incredibly healthy perspective on life and what really matters. I wonder what other distractions I have created consciously or subconsciously to prevent or protect myself from feeling anything uncomfortable or painful that still does need to be experienced in order to grow. How slow must I go in order to have the energy to do the real emotional work I want and need to do? How tiny of a distraction is all that is needed to not feel what needs to be felt? If those feelings were experienced and released, how many of my own self-destructive behaviors would no longer be relevant? So that's an article that I wrote back in June of 2020, and it's just as relevant today because it's so easy for me to fall back into any kind of distractive behavior. It's funny, I'll even like clean my bathroom rather than do some work task that I need to do because there's something in that work task that I'm procrastinating, which is really rooted, what I've learned more recently, it's rooted in some emotional pain that I experienced way far back in my past. And that's what's driving me to procrastinate the task today. So I'm curious, what comes up for you as you listen to this episode? Can you identify any distractions, conscious or subconscious, that have been happening in your own life that prevent you from feeling what you need to feel, from working on your state of emotional health, from cultivating your relationships, or the things that you do want and need to do to make your life easier and happier? So that's what today's episode is all about. Are my healthy habits, or yours, disguising our pain and preventing our growth? I hope you'll go to the show notes and join this Uchi tribe, and let's get into it in a deeper way and really explore together in a private small group conversation and see what kind of growth we can each have based on this episode. Okay, so until next time, peace, love, and connect. Thanks for joining me on Question It. Remember, growth happens outside your comfort zone, so keep experimenting and embracing change. If you enjoyed this episode, connect with me in the show notes, leave a 5-star review, and request to join this episode's Uchi tribe. Until next time, peace, love, and connect.